Last night's primaries officially set the candidates for 3 of the most watched Senate races this November. In Alabama, Jeff Sessions lost his shot at recapturing a seat he held for 20 years. Sessions left the Senate to campaign for then-candidate Donald Trump. He became Mr. Trump's first attorney general and shortly after that recused himself from the investigation into Russian meddling in 2016. From then on, the president publicly undermined him. Sessions was beat by former Auburn football coach Tommy Tuberville, who was also endorsed by the president. Tuberville will try to recapture what is considered a vulnerable seat for Democrats, now held by Democrat Doug Jones. Jones won the traditionally red seat back in 2017, beating Judge Roy Moore. In spite of Moore's several allegations of sexual misconduct, President Trump still supported him. In Texas, former Air Force helicopter pilot M.J. Hagar defeated longtime state senator Royce West. She will face incumbent Republican John Cornyn. CBS News' latest battleground tracker poll of the state shows Hagar trailing Cornyn by 6 points. That is more than the 3-point margin from Texas in 2018 when Beto O'Rourke lost to Senator Ted Cruz. And in Maine, State House Speaker Sarah Gideon will face Susan Collins, the last remaining Republican senator from New England. Collins has become a top target for Democrats since her vote to confirm Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh in 2018. But even with Election Day scheduled for November 3rd, it could be much longer before we know the results of these races and the fate of control of power in Washington. In her latest article for CBSNews.com, CBSN political reporter Caitlin Huey-Burns warns that Election Day could turn into Election Week or even Election Month. Caitlin joins me now with more on this. Hi, Caitlin. Great to see you. So what is behind the possibility for such a long slog of an election?
Well, Tanya, I am not making any plans for the month of November because of what I learned from this article. From reporting this article, what I learned from talking to secretaries of state and election officials in these key battlegrounds, especially places like Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, places that helped Trump to victory in 2016, but by very slim margins. Election officials in those states were telling me that because they are expecting a surge in mail-in ballots in November, that we should expect it to take quite a while or longer than usual to be able to count those ballots. And they say this because they've been looking at data from recent primaries where we saw people, because of the pandemic, not necessarily wanting to go and stand in line or go to a public space and instead taking the option to vote by mail. This is something that you're going to see as states scale up their vote by mail operation in this pandemic. In Pennsylvania, for example, they saw more voters cast their ballots by mail than show up in person for the first time ever in their primary. So they're expecting these big numbers. And the biggest roadblock, the reason why we should expect the reason why we should expect delays is because there's legislation these poll workers and officials are not even able to open up the ballots until Election Day in many states, especially in Wisconsin and Pennsylvania and Michigan. There's legislation pending to alleviate some of those restrictions and give these officials more time to just open up the envelopes, check the signatures, go through the various steps needed to have the integrity of that ballot and the security of that ballot before even processing it. So that's something to keep an eye on as well.
And so how are the Biden and Trump campaigns each preparing for this possible long wait? Is it changing campaign strategy at all?
Well, one reason why election officials were telling me that they want to get the word out now that there could be a delay in seeing results on election night is because they don't want the integrity of the election to be at stake. They don't really want anybody to be surprised, and they don't want any windows of opportunity for people to undermine the results. And that comes against the backdrop of President Trump, even just yesterday, denigrating mail-in voting, claiming that it is fraudulent, although it is very, very rare according to evidence. And so you've seen him really criticize vote by mail. And Republicans don't really have a strategy for what is to come. Democrats have been proponents, by and large, of vote by mail and expanding it in states. So they have been pushing for it and have a strategy around it in terms of access to the vote. But this is also something to keep an eye on. I have talked to some Republicans who say that, look, people are going to want different options to be able to cast their ballot in November, whether that's going in person or if they don't feel safe enough to do that, having some kind of option to be able to still vote safely.
All right, Caitlin Huey-Burns, thank you so much for all that insight into November. We thought it was going to be busy up until November. Now it looks like it's going to be busy up until December at the very least. All right, thank you for that, Caitlin.
Thank you.